This is living vinegar made from lemon scraps and poppy seeds. By now, most of you are probably familiar with apple cider vinegar, which is made by allowing apple cider to ferment. But did you know that you can make vinegar using pretty much any fruit, herb, or combination of the two that you can think of? This is a great way for you to reduce food waste and use up the fruit that may be a little bruised or overripe. You're going to start with a clean half-gallon mason jar, or you can use quarts if you only have a small amount of scraps to work with. Chop your fruit scraps or herbs into chunks and add them into the jar. Fill with filtered water and add a few tablespoons to a half a cup of sugar and stir until dissolved. The amount of sugar you add entirely depends on how sweet your fruit is, so you will need to add more for things like herbs or citrus. You can use your tap water as long as it's not heavily chlorinated. Once the sugar has been dissolved, cover the jar with a clean cotton cloth or a coffee filter and secure with a rubber band or a mason jar ring like you see here. If you're anything like me, you have more rings than you know what to do with, so we may as well put them to work. During the ferment, your vinegar is going to go through two stages, the yeast stage and the bacterial stage. You'll need to stir the vinegar with a chopstick or other non-metal instrument once a day. This keeps the material submerged and prevents mold from growing on the surface. You need the cloth or coffee filter to keep dust and bugs out, but also to allow oxygen to flow and so that your jar doesn't explode. Yeast produces a lot of carbon dioxide, and if that builds up, you will have an explosive in your kitchen. Yeast needs sugar to stay alive. The yeast will produce ethanol as a waste product, and too much of it will kill the yeast if it doesn't have enough sugar. Too much sugar, however, will halt the fermentation process, so keep that in mind. Once the ethanol enters the equation, so does the bacterial stage of fermentation. Bacteria is responsible for producing the vinegar itself, and it's a beautiful, smelly tag team. After most of the sugar has been worked through by the yeast and carbon dioxide production has slowed down, your fruit will settle to the bottom of the jar. This will take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, and you can strain the fruit out. It can still take another month or so before all of the sugar is spent, so make sure you still allow it to breathe after you strain the fruit. Check the pH with strips or a digital meter. It needs to be around 3.5. If you aren't sure if all the sugar is spent, you can put a lid on the jar and open it after about 12 to 24 hours. If you hear a hiss and see bubbles, you need to let it breathe a little bit longer.